notes for my September 2024 reading of a 2007/2008 autobiography of Haruki Murakami. And I'm filming this Wednesday, 25 September 2024. I started it yesterday, Tuesday, 24 September 2024, and finished the book today, Wednesday, 25 September 2024. It's 180 pages. I read it in 2 days, so I read 100 pages yesterday, Tuesday, and then 80 pages today, Wednesday. I'm Tanis Coralee Leonhardi, she, her, hers of Seattle. I'm going through my book and reading notes. So it's an autobiography on writer and runner Haruki Murakami. And it says in here he was born in the 1940s in Kyoto, Japan. And it's what I talk about when I talk about running, a memoir by Haruki Murakami, with the translated from Japanese by Philip Gabriel. The 2007 autobiography was in Japanese. This is the August 2008 Alfred A. Knopft edition, hardcover, and I'll put the ISBN in the video description. So yeah, so it's 2007/2008, with this particular one being the 2008 English edition. Got it from the public library system. It was not on the shelves. I did have to put it on hold, and I had to wait a while actually on this one. I think it was over a month to get it, so it was worth the wait though. So there we go. So that's the introduction. Book notes, including construction and design. So this is a perfect size book. It fits in my hand. I can open it. I don't have to bend the pages. The text, it is full page text with like 1 point spacing. So it looks like this. So like, don't be deceived. While it's 180 pages and the pages are smaller, it's full, right? There's not much blank space in here. So in that sense, it does require reading, which I was oddly happy about. I was like, this is, well, it's kind of like the subject of the book, running, in that sense of like, it requires doing something. It requires some effort. So yeah. And then let's see, I also love, it's such a running mentality, and pissed off about people being like, well, what do you mean by running? And the even pages were what I talk about when I talk about running at the top's the name of the book, and then the page number over here, and I was like, go dude, go. Okay, that made me happy. I was like, yes. As a runner, yes. He got it so right. And so yeah, so book notes are relatively short. I like the size, I like the jacket, and like, reading notes, he's like me, which was very cool. He started road running of his own initiative, and so I had physical education classes growing up, and he did as well, and he wasn't necessarily taken to sports, in part because they were forced upon him. So he kind of found running of his own, and I did the same. Yeah, and he talks about how nice it is because you just need a pair of shoes and roads, and off you go. And I'm like, yes. And he's a big deal writer. And he's one of his fiction works, Norwegian Wood, is relatively well known, but he has a bunch of other novels, and it says in the back he's won the Franz Kafka Prize, in addition to other prizes and stuff. So notable in that sense. And so this is like kind of a dedication to, in addition to all of his writing and the books and the novels and stuff he's written, he has also pursued running, including running competition. Such as the Boston Marathon and the New York City Marathon, and that's kind of what this chronicles. Is it's the different chapters are different date stamps, and so it's kind of like going through what he was going through in his training for his running at that point in time, and then kind of breaking down the different elements of running. So this is like, if running stripped right here is like, he gets it all right from my perspective. I'd say I've read a number of sports autobiographies now. Nobody has done it as well as he has. So like, period, including individual performances. I'm just kind of, yeah, being an athlete doesn't mean they're good at communicating what they're doing, right? That might actually, the golden perspective on talking about what it's like to compete might actually come from the writer who is also competitive in sports, like a guy like this. So there we go. Not necessarily, it doesn't mean somebody will be good at it, but he is, right? And I would say, before I go into what I kind of marked to cover, I say the overall approach, Tanis Coralee Leonhardi, shares a Seattle may term, I think it's autobiographical, authentic truth. But that's what he does. That's the term I came up with, was, this is like spectacular. Okay, so yeah. All right. So page 17, he talks about when he runs, he doesn't necessarily think of a lot. But then later in the book, he does bring up, like, sometimes he'll, like, think of, like, he doesn't like it when his novels jump into his mind when he's running, but, like, sometimes he'll actually, like, work out the, you know, the wording of a sentence or something. And I've brought that up a number of times on this channel, haven't I? That's what I do too. So I was like, oh man, peas in a pod. How cool is that? Page 22. Talks about, times in races not improving with age. And I was like, how about a tie? Instead of doing a personal best time, why not tie a personal best time? I'm stuck on the, like, all right, well, so it's not like a brand new time for the body, but it's still impressive, like, no matter when somebody's age. All right, on page 50. Oh, he talks about how, I like this, in different arenas, I've encountered different numbers. Like, he says, as he's grown older, that things or changes in his life that come when he was younger, it would take him, you know, what he uses for page 22 is a month and a half. What used to take him that long would double in time and take 3 months as he's grown older. I've encountered that in, like, in academia. It was what took, you know, a year in undergrad takes 3 years in graduate school. There's like, sometimes it's aging, sometimes it's just situational, right? But that kind of concept of sometimes things just take a lot longer. That was like, that's a, I can think of it, graduate school is older than undergrad. It's more complex, it takes longer, that kind of thing. Let's see, page 58, Olympic Games coverage. I think I remember this guy. So he went over and ran between Athens and Marathon. I think it's this, that's the where marathon, the distance comes from, right, like Greece. And so, but it's only 25 miles, not 26.2, but it comes from Greece. And so he ran before the 2004 Summer Olympic Games in Athens, Greece. And he ran the distance, and then it turns out it wasn't actually the distance. And so they actually, for the Olympic Games, there's like a detour. It's not the exact route that this guy ran. They happened to add in a detour to add in the, you know, extra 1.2 miles. But he was like, but I looked at my odometer or whatever it was, and he was like, but I got 26 miles. But like, they still they didn't communicate that in advance and stuff. And I was just kind of like, I think I remember that, because there was it's like one of those things where with the Olympic Games and sports in general, but especially the Olympic Games, like something flares up behind the scenes or like in advance of the Olympic Games, and you see all of this press coverage that's really abnormal. Like, what's the distance of a marathon? And like, what's the distance between Athens and marathon? Like, that it was an abnormal amount of coverage that went to that. And I remember like seeing it back in 2004 and being like, did somebody point out that the distance isn't exactly that of a marathon? I'm like, maybe it was this guy, because like it was just way overblown. And I was like, and I've like since learned, you know, things do flare up before the Olympic Games, and you see an abnormal amount of coverage in relation to something, and like it's during the Olympic Games, and you're like, uh-oh, somebody brought something up over here. So I was like, I think I found the source, you know. It took me, what, it's 20 years later now, it's 2024, 20 years later, I potentially found the source. He even like points out there was an Oriental running between cities in Greece. He was like, you know, I was like, it's not something they saw every day, okay? Like, it was Greece, and he's Japanese. Okay, so, you know, the world was a different place back in 2004. Okay, but I was like, I actually remember that about the marathon at the 2004 Summer Olympic Games. Jogged my memory. Okay, so there we go. And then, so I got some Olympic Games coverage in this next video. All right, page 77. Oh, he provides a really great discussion and perspective on talent. So it goes on for, I think, over a page. But he kind of breaks it down, and I was like, this is a really good discussion. I think one, like, he kind of emphasizes not using talent all up in one go. I thought that was a really great point to emphasize. So, yeah. Let's see. Page 137, he talks about training for triathlon, and he likes the running and swimming, but not necessarily the bicycling. Same for me. Or I'm same. Yeah, kind of thing. And then let's see, last thing I marked, page 150. Oh, he goes riding and running kind of both in their origins in his own life worked the same. It was kind of like all of a sudden he had this impulse of like, I just want to do this, and he wrote a book, right? And then another time I have this, I just want to run, and he did it, and it was happy, and he found a home in both. But sometimes, sometimes a lot of people plan a lot, and they're like, I'm gonna plan, I gotta figure everything out, and then they go for it. And he was like, I'm just gonna go for it. It feels right. And he got it right, not once, but twice. All right, he's a writer and a runner with books and competition experience to show for it. So there you go. In conclusion, definitely 5 out of 5. This might be more like 100 out of 5. It marked full book number 44 for me for the 2024 year. Very good.